It was the kind of night when the highway felt endless, cold air biting, fog curling low, and nothing but the hum of diesel for company. Trucker Vincent Diesel Dog Kowalski had been rolling down I-95 for hours when something unusual caught his eye. A shadowed shape tucked behind an overpass pillar at mile marker 127. At first glance, it looked like any old abandoned vehicle. But as he slowed and the beams of his headlights swept over it, he saw the faded blue striping, the cracked paint, the unmistakable outline of a late 80s Ford Crown Victoria, a state police cruiser. The driver's door was ajar, and the air around it felt wrong. Inside, dust coated everything. The radio was gone, ripped clean from its mount, and on the passenger seat, a manila envelope. Inside, a tarnished badge and a handwritten note from a trooper who vanished 16 years earlier. The message was clear. If you're reading this, they found me. Tell my son the truth. If you like crime stories, hit the like button, don't forget to subscribe, comment. Where are you from watching the video? Move on towards story. Under a cold March sky, Vincent Diesel Dog Kowalski eased his Peterbilt onto the shoulder of I-95. The mile marker read 127. Just ahead, a white Crown Victoria sat half-hidden behind a concrete pillar. Vincent's hazard lights flashed in the night as he studied the cruiser's faded blue striping. 16 years of highway driving had taught him to notice details others missed. This one felt different, like the air itself was holding its breath. He climbed down from his cab, boots crunching gravel, flashlight in hand. The cruiser's driver's door hung open. No dome light, just darkness and the smell of stale dust. Inside, cracked vinyl seats sagged like forgotten memories. The dashboard's radio mount was ripped bare. On the passenger seat sat a manila envelope, untouched, waiting. Vincent glanced up and down the deserted highway, then reached inside. The envelope was heavy with something metallic, its flaps sealed but worn. Tearing it open, he found a Virginia State Police badge, tarnished but readable. Trooper Derek Castellano, badge number 4821. Beneath it lay a folded note written in blue ink, the handwriting urgent and uneven. If you're reading this, they found me. Check the trunk. Tell my son Marcus the truth about February 12, 1987. The evidence is hidden where we used to fish. Don't trust Captain Morrison. He's involved. The date sent a shiver through Vincent. Truckers swapped stories about a trooper who vanished back then, rumors of corruption, danger, and powerful men. This note felt like proof, a voice reaching across 16 years. The trunk release was broken, but Vincent had spent a lifetime around machines. He popped it open with practiced force. Inside, wrapped in plastic, was a tape recorder and a stack of photographs. The photos showed men in expensive suits in parking lots, briefcases changing hands. Vincent pressed play on the recorder. A man's voice spoke, steady, clear, and heavy with intent. This is Trooper Derek Castellano, badge number 4821. The recording told of a cocaine trafficking ring running through Virginia. Names dropped like anchors: Captain Harold Morrison, Judge Franklin Whitmore, businessmen in Richmond. They used state police resources to protect shipments moving up I-95 from Florida to New York. From the highway came the faint wail of approaching sirens. Vincent returned the evidence to the trunk, but slipped the handwritten note into his pocket. Some truths couldn't wait for an evidence locker. A patrol car arrived, lights flashing. Trooper Patrick Nolan stepped out, scanning the cruiser with a practiced eye. "You report this?" Vincent nodded, keeping his face unreadable. Yeah, been there a while. Figured it might be stolen. Nolan frowned. This looks like it's been here for years. We'll tow it in the morning. Vincent hesitated, then asked, "Ever hear of a trooper named Derek Castellano?" Nolan's eyes sharpened, his tone turning guarded. "That's not a name we discuss with civilians. How do you know it?" Vincent shrugged. "Just heard the story from other drivers. He vanished in '87, right?" Nolan's gaze lingered, weighing whether to say more. "His patrol car was found abandoned near Fredericksburg. No sign of him. The case is still open." Vincent looked toward the dark line of trees, thinking about the note in his pocket. This was no cold case. After Nolan left, Vincent sat in his truck, cigarette smoke curling in the dim cab light. He had a delivery to make, but there were some loads more important than freight. This was one of them. He opened his logbook, jotting an address he'd once overheard from a mutual acquaintance. Marcus Castellano, Arlington, Virginia, the son who deserved to know his father's last words. Vincent turned the key and rolled back onto the highway. Marcus Castellano's apartment sat in a modest Arlington complex, brick buildings lined with neat hedges. Vincent parked, gripping the folded note in his pocket. 16 years of mystery pressed down on this moment. He climbed the stairs and knocked. After a pause, the door opened. Marcus was tall, dark-haired, his eyes carrying an exhaustion Vincent recognized. The resemblance to the trooper in the photographs was unmistakable. "My father's been dead 16 years, Marcus said flatly. "If this is a scam, I'm not interested." Vincent met his gaze, pulled the note from his pocket and held it out silently. Marcus unfolded it, reading the words twice. His hands trembled, jaw tightening. "Where did you get this?" Vincent's voice stayed even. "From his patrol car. The real one, not the decoy they found on Route 17. The color drained from Marcus's face. He motioned Vincent inside, the small apartment lined with bookshelves and a desk stacked with files. The air smelled faintly of strong coffee and old paper. "My grandmother raised me," Marcus said quietly, setting the note on the table. "I always knew the official report didn't make sense. My father wouldn't just vanish without cause." His tone was part conviction, part ache. Vincent leaned forward. "He was investigating corruption, Morrison, Whitmore, others, protecting drug shipments up the interstate. He knew they'd kill him for it." Marcus walked to a cabinet, retrieving a folder labeled Dad's Case. Inside were newspaper clippings, police reports, letters. Marcus spread them across the table. "I've been working on this for years. Look here. Maintenance records show his assigned patrol car was in the shop the night he vanished." Vincent's eyes narrowed. "So the vehicle they found wasn't his at all. They used a different one to stage the scene." Marcus nodded grimly. "Exactly. But I've never been able to prove it until now." The note mentioned the Rappahannock River, a place Marcus remembered from childhood fishing trips with his father. "If he hid something there, we need to find it before anyone else does," Marcus said with quiet urgency. Vincent asked about the original investigation. Marcus's expression tightened. "Lead investigator was Lieutenant James Brennan. Retired now. Refused to talk to me. But after my father disappeared, he changed. Withdrawn. Drinking heavily. Retired early." Pulling a photo from the file, Marcus pointed out Morrison and Whitmore standing at his father's funeral, solemn-faced among the crowd. They murdered him, then praised him in public, used his death to advance themselves. From another envelope, Marcus revealed records from a private investigator, Samuel Chung, a former FBI agent. "He found Whitmore bought a beach house in '87 cash 3 months after my father disappeared, and Morrison had gambling debts suddenly erased." Vincent studied the documents, brow furrowed. "So they got paid for their part in it. Drug money, bribes, connections." Marcus's face darkened. "Chung died in a so-called accident last year. His office burned days later." That's no coincidence, Vincent said, leaning back. Someone's still protecting this network. They've killed to keep it buried before. They'll do it again. Marcus began gathering the documents back into the folder. As they merged onto I-95 southbound, Marcus stared out the window, remembering his father's voice. He used to say justice wasn't about being popular, it was about doing what's right, even when it costs everything. The miles ahead felt heavy with history. Somewhere along the Rappahannock, a piece of truth had waited 16 years for them to arrive, and now, for the first time, they were driving straight toward it. The Rappahannock River stretched wide and cold under a fading winter sun. Vincent parked near the old bridge, its weathered concrete stained by years of storms. Marcus scanned the shoreline, memories stirring as boots crunched over frozen earth. "This is where he brought me to fish," Marcus said, eyes sweeping the water's edge. "He always claimed the best spot was under those trees." Vincent followed his gaze toward a cluster of gnarled trunks leaning over the bank. They moved through brittle grass and tangled roots, searching. Marcus crouched near a half-buried rock. Something about its placement seemed intentional, as if positioned to guard what lay beneath. He brushed away damp leaves and mud. Metal glinted. Vincent knelt beside him, fingers working carefully to lift a sealed metal box wrapped in layers of aged plastic. The wrapping cracked softly in the cold air as they peeled it away. Inside, photographs and cassette tapes lay stacked with military precision. Beneath them, a thick, leather-bound journal bore the name Derek Castellano in neat block letters. Marcus's breath caught as he touched it. Vincent flipped open the journal. Pages filled with dates, names, and meticulous notes mapped a web of corruption. Marcus scanned a February 11th entry. His father suspected Morrison was preparing to eliminate him. He still planned to meet anyway. They played one of the tapes. Whitmore's voice was unmistakable, discussing shipment schedules and payoff amounts. Another tape captured Morrison instructing officers to avoid certain routes during special deliveries. The evidence was damning, even after 16 years. Marcus stared at the water, imagining his father writing these entries, recording these voices, knowing the danger. He documented everything. He wasn't just building a case, he was building an insurance policy in case they killed him. Vincent closed the journal. "This is enough to break the network if the right people get it." Marcus shook his head. "If the wrong people see it first, it disappears. Or we do." They secured the evidence in a lockbox behind Vincent's seat and drove toward Fredericksburg. The sun dipped low, shadows stretching across the river, as if the place itself was holding secrets close. On the way, Marcus revealed another lead. The journal mentions Agent Robert Vance, a federal contact. He's retired now, living in Charlottesville. If he's still willing to talk, he could connect missing pieces. Vincent nodded. "We'll visit him, but we need to move carefully. If this operation is still running, they've had years to perfect their cover and to watch for anyone poking around." Marcus glanced at the lockbox, jaw set. "This is my father's voice, his proof, his work. They took him away, but they didn't kill what he stood for. Now we carry that forward." The truck hummed along the darkening highway. Vincent kept one eye on the mirrors, scanning for suspicious headlights. Marcus stared ahead, mind running through scenarios of allies, enemies, and how far their reach might still extend. Charlottesville waited in the morning, but for now they pulled off at a small-town motel, parking the truck under a flickering security light. The lockbox stayed close, too valuable to risk out of sight. In the room, they spread the journal pages across the table, tracing connections. Every line, every name, every dollar amount was another nail in the coffin of men who thought their crimes had been forgotten. Vincent finally leaned back. Your father left you a map, not just to what happened, but to who's still out there. Tomorrow we start knocking on doors they thought would stay shut forever. Marcus closed the journal gently, almost reverently. They silenced him, but if I have anything to say about it, his truth is about to speak louder than they ever imagined. The night outside was still, but both men knew it wouldn't stay that way. Somewhere, someone was already wondering who had found the trail, and how to erase them before it was too late. Morning light spilled across the motel room table, illuminating the spread of Derek Castellano's journal. Marcus traced the network diagrams sketched in his father's steady hand, each line a direct link to men who still walked free. Their route to Charlottesville wound through quiet Virginia backroads, frost clinging to fields. Vincent kept the truck steady while Marcus scanned the mirrors for tails. Trust was currency now, and neither man had much to spend. Agent Robert Vance's home was modest, with a neatly trimmed yard and an American flag fluttering in the cold breeze. Vance, silver-haired and lean, opened the door, his gaze locking immediately on Marcus. You look just like him, Vance said, stepping aside to let them in. His living room was lined with books and old case files, the scent of coffee mingling with the faint smell of paper and dust. They sat, and Marcus placed the journal on the coffee table. Vance opened it, flipping through pages slowly. 16 years, he murmured. This is the case they buried, the one that ended his life. Vincent leaned forward. We've got photos, recordings, notes, everything he gathered. We think parts of the operation are still running. Vance's eyes sharpened. Not just think. I've been watching the same routes for years. Vance retrieved a folder from a cabinet, its contents mirroring Derek's investigation. Construction projects, political connections, drug seizures timed with suspicious activity. Michael Stevenson's name keeps appearing. He was laundering money through public contracts then, and he's still doing it now, Marcus asked about Morrison. Vance shook his head. Dead since '94. But his influence lived on. His son, Judge Robert Morrison, sits on the bench now. If he's in on it, it explains the protection. Vincent frowned. We've also got a Mark Brennan, state police sergeant, son of Lieutenant James Brennan, who led the original investigation. Vance's expression darkened. Mark was Morrison's protege. Ambitious. Knew when to look away. Vance confirmed the operation's longevity. They adapted after Derek, changed faces, same playbook, construction projects as cover for moving product, keeping eyes focused elsewhere. Men like Stevenson keep it smooth because they look legitimate. Marcus leaned back, the journal resting against his knee. If they know we have this, they'll move fast to shut us down. We've already seen signs someone's watching us. Vance's jaw tightened. Then we hit first. They discussed surveillance, building a list of current projects tied to Stevenson. Each had the same pattern: state contracts, strategic location, and a spike in drug traffic nearby. It was a blueprint Derek himself might have drawn. Vance urged caution. These men kill to protect their network. Derek knew that, but he underestimated how deep the rot went. You need allies you can trust, and that list is short. Vincent nodded. Then we keep our circle tight, just us three, until we know who's clean. Marcus agreed, though the weight of the task ahead pressed heavy. Every step forward risks drawing them closer. By late afternoon, they had a plan. Watch Stevenson's current highway project south of Richmond. If it mirrored the old operation, it could confirm the network was still active and give them something undeniable. They left Vance's house with the journal secured, heading back toward the interstate. The winter sun hung low, shadows stretching long across the road. Somewhere ahead, the men they hunted were moving pieces into place. In the cab, Vincent broke the silence. "Feels like we're following a trail Derek left knowing one day you'd be the one to finish it." Marcus kept his gaze on the horizon. "Then I won't fail him." As the miles passed, the sense of being hunted never left. Each vehicle lingering in the mirrors brought a subtle tightening of the chest. Somewhere, eyes were already on them, waiting for the right moment to strike. The day ended with the lights of Richmond flickering in the distance, and with them the promise of answers, or enemies. In this game, the two often came packaged together, and both carried a price. The Stevenson construction headquarters rose like a fortress of glass and steel in downtown Richmond. Company trucks filled the lot, workers in hard hats moved purposefully, and from the street, it looked like nothing more than legitimate business. Vincent parked across from the entrance, camera ready. Marcus scanned the lot through binoculars. "There," he said quietly. A black Mercedes rolled in, sleek and polished. Michael Stevenson stepped out, older now but instantly recognizable from the old photos. Stevenson disappeared inside. 20 minutes later, he re-emerged with another man, tall, sharp-suited, his face unfamiliar. They climbed into a pickup truck and headed south. Vincent pulled into traffic a block behind, keeping other vehicles between them. The truck's route matched their predictions, merging onto I-95 before exiting near Petersburg. Marcus felt the hairs on his neck rise. "Same area my father documented meetings back in '87. Same setup." They followed onto back roads leading to a sprawling construction staging area. Temporary trailers, parked machinery, and stacks of materials framed the scene. It was isolated, shielded from passing traffic, perfect for quiet deals. Vincent parked behind a stand of trees. Through the telephoto lens, Marcus caught two more arrivals, expensive sedans that clearly didn't belong to construction crews. From each, men in suits emerged, moving toward a central trailer. Vincent worked the shutter, capturing faces and license plates. Marcus deployed a parabolic microphone, angling it toward the group. Static gave way to muffled voices, but the distance made words indistinct. Still, body language told its own story. Hands gesturing sharply, men leaning in close, checking watches, scanning the surroundings. It was the choreography of men who knew what they discussed couldn't be overheard. After half an hour, the meeting broke. The visitors left separately, and Stevenson remained near the trailer. Then another vehicle arrived, a marked Virginia State Police cruiser. Marcus's grip tightened. "That's Mark Brennan." Brennan stepped out, uniform crisp, eyes scanning the site before heading inside the trailer. Vincent's camera clicked in rapid bursts. "Current law enforcement in bed with the same players Derek was tracking. We've got them." Inside, through the trailer's dusty windows, Brennan met with Stevenson and the tall, unknown man. No paperwork, no laptops, just quiet conversation that seemed heavier than any construction contract discussion. After 20 minutes, Brennan left, climbing into his cruiser. Vincent kept the camera on him until the patrol car disappeared down the road. "Photos, timestamps, and the company he keeps. This is gold." Marcus exhaled slowly. "It's enough to spark questions, but not enough to lock them up. We need something they can't explain away, something in their own words." Vincent nodded. "Then we wait. These guys are comfortable. They've been untouchable for years. Comfort makes people sloppy." Marcus's eyes stayed on the trailer. "We can't afford to be sloppy first." They retreated to Richmond with the evidence secured. Every mile a reminder that the men they were tracking could order them gone as easily as ordering another shipment moved. That night, they reviewed the footage in a dim motel room. Every frame of Stevenson with Brennan told the same story: loyalty between men who owed their positions to corruption. Marcus leaned back, the glow from the screen casting shadows across his face. "This is the same operation my father bled to stop. The faces change, but the machine never does." Vincent reached for the remote, shutting off the monitor. Then we do what he couldn't. We bring the machine down piece by piece before it grinds up anyone else. Outside, the hum of the highway carried on. Somewhere down the road, Stevenson and Brennan were certain they were untouchable. Tomorrow, Marcus intended to take the first step toward proving them wrong. The next morning broke gray and wet, rain streaking the motel window. Vincent brewed coffee while Marcus spread the previous day's photographs across the table, grouping them into sequences that showed Brennan's arrival, the meeting, and his departure. "These won't stand alone in court," Marcus said, tapping the images. "But paired with audio, something direct, incriminating, they become leverage." Vincent nodded, sipping coffee. "We need ears inside that trailer without being noticed." They discussed options, ruling out anything that would blow their cover. Finally, Marcus proposed shadowing Stevenson's movements outside the site, hoping for an unguarded moment with his co-conspirators somewhere less controlled. By late morning, they were back in Richmond. The construction site bustled with legitimate workers, but the trailer where yesterday's meeting took place remained locked and quiet. Stevenson's Mercedes was gone, replaced by his black pickup. Vincent parked down the street from Stevenson's headquarters. Hours passed before Stevenson emerged, speaking briefly to a man in a gray suit before heading toward a nearby cafe. Marcus grabbed a small recording device. Inside the cafe, they sat several tables away, voices low. Stevenson and the suited man spoke freely, assuming the rain-muted space was private. Words like shipment, timing, and diversion slid between clinks of coffee cups. The device caught every syllable. Stevenson complained about the Castellano kid stirring old ghosts, and the man reassured him Brennan had friends in the right places to make problems vanish if necessary. Marcus kept his expression neutral while adrenaline surged. This was the first time his name had surfaced in their conversations, proof they knew he existed, and that he was now a threat worth discussing. When Stevenson left, Vincent and Marcus waited 5 minutes before following at a distance. He drove toward the interstate, then detoured into a gated storage facility on the city's edge. The heavy rain made surveillance tricky, but they caught glimpses of Stevenson unloading a crate from his truck with the help of 2 men. The crate disappeared into a locked unit. "Could be anything," Vincent murmured. Marcus's voice was quiet but firm. "Or it could be exactly what I think it is. Shipment cover. Storage gives them flexibility before moving product further." They noted the unit number and retreated, knowing any closer approach would risk exposure. Back at the motel, Marcus called Vance, briefing him on the new development. Vance agreed to discreetly check the facility's ownership records. By nightfall, Vance called back. The unit was leased under a shell company tied to one of Stevenson's business partners. Michael Stevenson Jr., his own son, masked behind layers of corporate paperwork. "This thing's generational," Marcus said, pacing. "They're grooming the next line, just like Morrison's kid stepping into his father's seat. They don't just protect the business, they inherit it." Vincent leaned against the wall. "That makes them harder to break. You're not just fighting old enemies. You're staring down men who grew up learning how to hide the dirt." Marcus studied the recorder on the table. "Then we hit them where they're weakest. Hubris. They think no one's watching, no one's capable of connecting dots across decades." His tone carried his father's steel. The rain eased into a cold drizzle as they turned in for the night. Tomorrow, they would be back at the site, closer, ready to catch words and movements that couldn't be explained away. Marcus lay awake long after Vincent's breathing steadied. Somewhere in the dark, Brennan and Stevenson were making plans, confident their power insulated them. Soon enough, he intended to prove how wrong they were. Dawn brought a crisp chill to the air as unmarked vans rolled into position around the Petersburg site. Marcus and Vincent watched from a command vehicle while FBI agents finalized camera placements and long-range audio setups. Agent Patrick Wolf reviewed the plan one final time. Brennan's been seen here twice this week. Stevenson's expected at 10. We'll capture everything from approach to departure. No interference unless safety demands it. Marcus kept his eyes on the monitors, the feed showing empty gravel lots and the silent construction trailer. Feels like we're sitting on the same knife's edge my father walked into, he muttered. By mid-morning, a state police cruiser appeared. Brennan stepped out, scanning the lot before entering the trailer. Agents adjusted audio focus. Every creak of the door transmitted into the command vehicle. Half an hour later, a black SUV rolled in. Anthony Marcelli emerged, glancing over both shoulders before joining Brennan inside. Wolf leaned closer to the monitor. There's our link. Organized crime directly tied to law enforcement. The microphones caught Brennan's voice. What happened to Stevenson? Marcelli's reply was cold. He was becoming a liability. The Castellano kid's digging too deep. Marcus's fists clenched, but he kept silent. Then we take care of him, Marcelli continued. Same as his father. Loose ends get cut. Brennan hesitated, muttering about not signing up to kill another cop. Marcelli's tone sharpened. You already did. Wolf signaled the takedown. Agents moved in from every angle, storming the trailer with weapons drawn. Brennan froze, hands raised. Marcelli calculated, eyes darting for escape, then slowly lifted his own hands. Anthony Marcelli, Mark Brennan, you're under arrest for conspiracy, murder, and corruption, an agent announced. Marcus exhaled, watching years of silence shatter in real time. Vincent murmured, Your father's voice is finally loud again. As suspects were led away, agents began combing the site. Hidden compartments in equipment held packages wrapped for transport. Ledger books detailed payments to officials, shipment schedules, and coded notes matching Derek's original files. In the command vehicle, Wolf turned to Marcus. This is enough to dismantle what's left of their network. Your father laid the foundation. You just built the walls around it. Marcus stared at the evidence spread across the table. It's not over. There are others named in those books, men still holding office, still wearing badges. Wolf's nod was grim. We'll find them. The scene wound down as trucks loaded seized equipment. Brennan sat in a patrol car, staring at the floor. Marcelli kept his eyes forward, his face unreadable as though already planning his next move. Back in Richmond, the evidence filled an entire conference room. Agents worked in shifts, cataloging every scrap of paper, every flash drive, every recorded word. Derek's journal sat open among them like a guiding star. Wolf briefed them on next steps: federal charges, coordination with state prosecutors, protection for witnesses. Vincent listened quietly, aware that even victories in cases like this carried shadows. Later, Marcus walked outside alone, the cool evening air cutting through the day's adrenaline. 16 years of questions had led here, yet he knew the fight wasn't truly finished. Vincent joined him, leaning on the railing. You did what your father couldn't. You stayed alive to see the cuffs go on. Marcus's gaze stayed on the city skyline. Now I make sure it sticks. Somewhere beyond those lights, allies of Brennan and Marcelli were already feeling the walls close in, and Marcus, carrying his father's resolve, intended to make sure none of them found a way out. The courtroom was packed, tension thick in the air. Marcus sat behind the prosecution's table, Derek's journal resting in his hands. Across the aisle, Brennan and Marcelli avoided his gaze, their lawyers whispering rapid strategies. Prosecutor Alan Reeves opened with a methodical timeline, weaving Derek's investigation into the present arrests. Photographs of the construction site, the storage unit, and the seized ledgers flashed on a screen, each image chipping away at the defense's confidence. Vincent sat in the gallery, watching the jurors lean forward as Reeves played Brennan's recorded conversation. The words about taking care of Marcus hung heavy, impossible to explain as anything but intent to kill. Marcelli's attorney tried to discredit the tapes, claiming entrapment. Reeves countered with Derek's original audio from 1987, the voices of men long dead but speaking crimes identical to those caught today. The continuity was undeniable. Marcus felt his father's presence in those moments, the echo of his voice bridging decades. Every word on those tapes became a blow against the wall of corruption that had shielded these men for years. Brennan finally took the stand, sweat visible on his brow. Under questioning, his composure cracked. He admitted to receiving cash payments, framing it as protection money from Marcelli's organization. The jury's faces hardened. When Marcelli was called, he refused to answer most questions, citing the Fifth Amendment. His silence felt like confession, a stubborn refusal to give anyone the satisfaction of hearing him admit the truth. The trial stretched for weeks, but the verdict came swiftly. Guilty on all counts: conspiracy, racketeering, obstruction of justice, and most importantly, the murder of Trooper Derek Castellano. Life sentences without parole. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Marcus spoke briefly, his voice steady. This was about truth. My father died chasing it. Today we proved they couldn't bury it forever. Cameras flashed as he turned away. Vincent clapped a hand on Marcus's shoulder. You think he'd be proud? Marcus's eyes stayed on the horizon. I think he'd tell me it's not over, that there's still work to be done. In the weeks that followed, the evidence from Brennan and Marcelli's case triggered new investigations. Names from Derek's journal began surfacing in indictments. State officials and businessmen quietly resigned before the charges could be filed. Marcus kept working with Wolf and Reeves, determined to see every loose thread tied. Some days the fight felt endless, but each conviction was a reminder that the network could bleed, and bleeding meant it could die. One quiet afternoon, Marcus returned to the Rappahannock. The river moved slow under the sun, its banks bare in winter light. He stood where he and Vincent had dug up the box, the wind cold on his face. This is where you trusted me, he said aloud, imagining Derek's hand on his shoulder. You left me the tools, the truth, and the choice. I made mine, and I'm not done. Back in Arlington, the journal rested on his desk, its pages worn but unbroken. Vincent visited often, the two men sharing coffee and updates, their unlikely partnership forged in the shadow of a decades-old crime. Some nights Marcus replayed his father's final tape, hearing the conviction in his voice. It wasn't just a record of evidence. It was a promise that the fight for justice was worth every risk. The city lights outside his window glimmered, but Marcus's eyes were on the darker spaces between them. Somewhere, someone else was plotting in the shadows, thinking they were untouchable, and Marcus was ready to prove them wrong. For the first time in 16 years, the weight of unanswered questions felt lighter. Derek Castellano's story was no longer an unsolved mystery. It was a warning, and his son was the one delivering it.